I have no more campaigns to run.
Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
Nobody in America that I know, at least not where I grew up, ever said to me as a kid in class, hey, Scott, good luck becoming dependent on the government someday.
Governor, there you go again.
One even said that efforts to guarantee fair pay reminded him of the Soviet Union.
Challenges for the next president is to restore some civility in our political process. But in the interim, it's ugly for sure.
I want to be president to help us build a future greater than our amazing past. And I will work with anyone to do it.
Whole binders full of women.
Is it right for me? Is it right for my family? And is it right for the country? If I answer all three of those yes, I'll run.
This campaign is not about Bernie Sanders. It's not about Hillary Clinton. It is not about Jeb Bush or anyone else. This campaign is about the needs of the American people.
Plays for the presidency.
A special year-end edition. And as we have many times this year, once again in our studio, Alan Kelly, the founder of the D.C. area competitive strategy firm Playmaker Systems, and the brains, as well as the body behind the first periodic table of politics, the standard table of influence, which is something we use here on Plays for the Presidency to sharpen our understanding of the games and the gamesmanship of the 2016 race, and there is plenty of that. Alan, by the way, tweets at Playmaker Alan, which is A-L-A-N, and is also decked out sartorially splendid on this pre-Christmas edition and this end-of-the-year edition. Well, welcome.
Happy holidays, Tim.
You too. You too. So let's talk about this. For people who are not familiar, let's just set the stage again what this whole table is about so that they understand the basis for this, because sometimes at this time of year we're getting some new listeners. So just lay it out for us in general.
Sure. A few years back in my work in Silicon Valley, I had a client essentially call out a competitor right in front of him. It was a guy named Larry Ellison saying to Bill Gates, the PC is a ridiculous device, which is kind of an incendiary thing to say in front of Bill Gates. Yeah. And I thought, yeah, we all know what that is, but what is it precisely? If we were chemists or if we were biologists, we'd know, well, it's this species or it's this, element. If we were an accountant, we'd say it's precisely the sort of credit or debit. But in the business of communication, marketing, advertising, sales, public affairs, lobbying, we only kind of know. And so I thought, is it possible that we could begin to identify as they say in biology, an irreducibly unique set of strategies that inform, at the most basic level, that inform, the plays that we run, the game and the gamesmanship of sort of influence-based environments. Like politics.
Sure, exactly.
And so that idea yielded a book, The Elements of Influence. It yielded a system, a table, if you will, called the Standard Table of Elements. And it's yielded an app. It's going to start to yield actually a machine-readable version as well, which is some secret sauce and fun stuff we're doing in the Playmaker Bat Cave.
It's like battle discussions. I mean, everyone knows what a pincer movement is if you study a battle plan. So when people say this is the equivalent, only we're talking about rhetorical steps in many cases.
That's right. That's right. We've done a great job up to this point of defining strategy as sort of something which is tangible, something, you move a battleship, you pincer and, you do physical things. But we have not been quite so adept at understanding reputation and authenticity and engagement and credibility and all of these sort of hot words that we know are really meaningful, but we haven't been able to really break them down into elemental forms. Well, that's what this is about.
Let's use that as a basis for moving toward the year of 2015 as we look back on this year. And let's start with one of the plays of the years. You call it the Faux Follower Award. And it goes to Ted Cruz, the senator from Texas. And give us a listen, and we'll let Alan explain what he means. Ted Cruz a couple of times talking about Donald Trump, because a lot of people have said, Ted Cruz, maybe the inheritor, perhaps, if Donald Trump at some point is to fall. Here's Ted Cruz.
I disagree with that proposal. I like Donald Trump. A lot of our friends here have encouraged me to criticize and attack Donald Trump. I'm not interested in doing so, but I believe we need a plan that is focused on the direct threat, and the threat we're facing is radical Islamic terrorism. It's why I've introduced legislation focused on suspending for 3 years, putting in place a moratorium on refugees from countries where ISIS or al-Qaeda controls substantial territory.
That is one. And then another, this is from a press conference that was held just a few weeks ago.
I am focused on my policies and the solutions that I am proposing to the real problems in this country. And I recognize that a great many folks in the media would prefer that anyone running for president engage in an ongoing theater critic, criticizing the proposals of others. I do not agree with his proposal.
That is talking about Donald Trump in that particular case again. And what has happened is Donald Trump has become, if you will, the touchstone of questions. It's sort of like, what do you think of what Donald Trump said? And Ted Cruz, who has actually appeared with Donald Trump this year at an event or two, has been loath to criticize Donald Trump, unlike some other Republican candidates. What is the play that Ted Cruz is running?
There's a lot of commentary lately over those cycles that the play that he was running was a bear hug. And bear hug, indeed, is the name given for a particular stratagem in our system of 24. It's defined as to agree overtly the conspicuous support of another player's position or message. And yeah, I think at some level you could say that Cruz is bear hugging. But the thing about a bear hug is it's a freezing play. It's designed really just to try to sort of stop what I call play action and make something just sort of freeze. I think that 6 months ago, though, he was probably the first among the various candidates to, to bear hug, but do something I think is a lot more clever. You can think of it as something that Steve Jobs does. In his day, he would follow a technology, he would copy it, he would understand it, and then at the appropriate time, he would slip around it. It is, as they say in NASCAR, slipstreaming or drafting, and that is the name of the play. It's a draft is in fact a pressing strategy where you're not just simply coming up and trying to squeeze them and bear hug them. You're actually trying to copy them and ultimately get around them.
And people who have ever followed a big truck on the interstate know what we're talking about. You get sucked up behind it. You don't even have to put your foot on the accelerator half the time because it's making the way through the air, and you can just sort of take advantage of that opening behind that truck.
So Cruz accepted some criticism for not criticizing Trump. But I think it was really, in a way, the play of the year. It was such a smart and strategic
and it's
move.
An ongoing play.
Absolutely. Whatever your politics, whatever you say about either of these candidates, I thought it was really the defining play that has gotten Cruz to where he is at this point.
Not so successful was the attempt by Rick Perry. Remember him? Your doppelganger was trying.
Now, don't make fun of Rick.
I'm not making fun of him. It's just that he tried that frontal assault, which worked well when he was running against K. Bailey Hutchison, when he was running in Texas. And here's what he did.
Well, when you look at the celebrity of Donald Trump, then I think that says a lot about it. One thing I like to remind people is back in 2007, Rudy Giuliani was leading the polls for almost a year. I'll suggest a part of that was his celebrity. Fred Thompson was the other one, a man who had spent a lot of time on that screen. I've had my issues with Donald Trump. I talked about Donald Trump from the standpoint of being an individual who was using his celebrity rather than his conservatism. How can you run for the Republican nomination and be for single-payer health care?
That is the full frontal assault, if you will, by Governor Rick Perry.
Yeah. At about the same time that Cruz decided to draft, to tailgate Donald Trump, Rick Perry decided that his candidacy would be based on quite the opposite.
And his play was?
His play was a variety of things. He ran plays called Screens, where he was invoking symbols of true conservatism. He was trying to say this is really what the proper conservative is, and he used all manner of issues and symbols and ideas to sort of invoke that and enlarge it. But I think that the sort of play that he ran probably most often was probably called the label. A label is to make something stick, the application of a memorable word. It's a soundbite, and he's the guy who rolled out, so far as I know, the concept or the bite of Trumpism.
Okay.
He tried to drive that in there. He tried to slap that label on. The thing is that what he didn't realize and what Cruz so definitely did.
The country was looking for Trumpism?
They were looking for Trumpism.
Yeah.
They wanted Trumpism. I wrote a blog saying, I am a victim of Trumpism. I kind of like Trumpism. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And so he pinned his candidacy on it. And I think the irony is that, one cycle ago, he was criticized for his sort of going blank in a debate, his oops moment. he sort of, he did it again, if you will.
In a very different way, though.
In a very different way. But again, he kind of went blank.
Alan Kelly with us. We are looking at the plays of the year 2015 as part of the 2016 campaign. And let's go to the Donald himself.
Carson is super low energy, right? It's super. He's super low. Super low energy. We need tremendous energy. We need tremendous energy.
Well, that's Donald Trump talking about Ben Carson. He also talked about a lot about Jeb Bush this year.
I think he's a reluctant warrior. I think he doesn't want to be running. I don't know why he's running. He looks unhappy. He looks like he just doesn't want to be there. I watched the interview. The question couldn't have been any easier.
But Hillary and Jeb, I can't call him Bush. He doesn't use his last name. Did you ever see a sign that says Jeb Bush or Bush? Now, there's a reason he doesn't use his last name, because it's not going to work too well. Because we had a lot of problems with that last name.
Jeb Bush is a low-energy person.
Okay, so many different things about Jeb Bush. For some reason, this seems to be the most convenient and popular target of Donald Trump.
For better, for worse, we have to name Donald Trump Playmaker of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
I think last year it was the Pope. So, the use of...
You have run the gamut, haven't you, Alan?
The use of influence strategies can swing wildly. But what I'm trying to point up here, outside of ideology is the application of discrete influence strategies and how well or how famously or infamously they work or don't work.
Is this instinctive for him? It sounds very much a learned, almost, don't tell me what to do. I don't need to read a book, but I know how to do it.
Yes. There are various, characters and celebrities around us that do this just automatically. Oprah Winfrey, Richard Branson, my friend Larry Ellison. There's a guy named Mark Benioff in tech who is just fluid. Bill Clinton is liquid when it comes to running plays. This system is designed to probably help the people who don't see it or do it instinctively to understand it mechanically.
Mm-hmm.
So for Trump, the question is, well, then how or why was he such a great playmaker? What did he do? I think he's probably operating in three different areas of the playmaker table. First, he was running a play called a peacock, which might be self-evident. And that is the jet. That's the hair. That's the supermodel wife.
The hats. America's going to be great again. Hats.
Yes, and he doesn't mind essentially just strutting. He understands that the media is extremely hungry. The media is very corruptible, and I say that
he knows what food the beast likes to eat.
Yes, for better or for worse, again. So that's the first level. The second level is he likes to run a play called a call-out. And that's a provoking play in and of itself. Very high engagement, and ironically to the very far right side of the table. And a call out is when he's talking about rapists and stupid politician, and China as sinister, and is ISIS as Islam, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Those are very, very pointed criticisms that are just amount to throwing insults.
What difference does it make the level of truth? And I ask that question because when he says something like Jeb Bush is low energy, that's something that people can evaluate. And if it works in the narrative, and by the way, it seems to in many cases, like the SNL characterizations of Jeb Bush next to Donald Trump. On the other hand, his assertion that he saw thousands of people celebrating in the streets of Jersey City, specifically post 9/11, that has been found to be one of a series of inaccurate statements that earned him the lie or liar of the year by PolitiFact. So where do his supporters look at truth in this spectrum?
Well, Trump is going to rewrite the rules, I think, on influence strategy. He's certainly rewriting the rules in this thing called reputation management. For every one of the plays that we have in our system, there's a tab of sorts. You click onto it and called downsides. What are the downsides of running this particular play? And almost every one of them says, in essence, you run this play without facts, you run it in a disingenuous way, you're on thin ice. The funny thing about Donald Trump is that it doesn't matter. I think inaccuracy or flouting the facts is almost part of his shtick. And so, in a way, he runs by special rules.
I want to get to the Democrats, if we can, for a moment. Alan Kelly with us. And before we could talk about Jeb in a little bit, but I want to make sure we have time for the Democrats, because what we've seen Bernie Sanders do is, as he said all along, take the high road. Bernie Sanders in the first Democratic debate.
The American people are sick and tired of hearing about your damn emails.
Thank you. Me too.
Okay, so then we get to another debate.
Does Secretary Clinton deserve an apology tonight?
Yes, I apologize.
Secretary Clinton, do you accept?
Not only do I apologize to Secretary Clinton, and I hope we can work together on an independent investigation from day one, I want to apologize to my supporters. This is not the type of campaign that we run. And if I find anybody else involved in this, they will also be fired.
Now, that is in the debate that was just most recently the last debate for the Democrats, the last debate, actually, the political debate of 2015. And I did want to make one other note, and this is Senator Sanders, about as tough as he'll get on Hillary Clinton, it seems, during the debates.
Our differences are fairly deep on this issue. We disagreed on the war in Iraq. We both listened to the information from Bush and Cheney. I voted against the war. But I think, and I say this with due respect, that I worry too much that Secretary Clinton is too much into regime change and a little bit too aggressive without knowing what the unintended consequences might be.
Okay, Alan Kelly, you have written about Bernie Sanders this year. He has taken the high road to nowhere, is the way you've described it. Yeah. And I'm not sure necessarily that we can say in all cases you have to be ready to get in the dirt in politics. But when you're on the presidential side, I think you have to at least go after the person you're running against.
I was just thinking, if you put Donald Trump, in back of Bernie as like a translator or something, how would Trump be translating what Bernie is saying? We have two diametrically different figures, one who does not want to engage, one who makes it crucial. The thing that does ultimately strike me about Bernie Sanders is despite his success and his grassroots, the real true organic nature of his campaign and his candidacy is that he seems to me to mistake or not understand who his competition is. He's very focused on the billionaire class, the plutocrats, the autocrats.
The millionaires and the billionaires.
Yeah, income inequality, and these are wonderful causes to champion.
And by the way, were even more wonderful about 6 months ago before we had ISIS becoming top of the page news.
Yeah. But income inequality is not his opponent. His opponent, frankly, is Hillary. It's certainly not Martin O'Malley. And so, he edges around because of his stated policy for not going negative. He can only go about as close as the clip that you just played. That's a real problem, particularly because I think any politico would tell you that Hillary Clinton has enormous exposure points. Mm-hmm. And which Donald Trump is probably going to mine.
Mm-hmm. Any Republican candidate will do their best to do that. Yeah. And in the case of Bernie Sanders, the senator from Vermont, it is a situation where I think Americans do, in their presidential candidate, want a fighter, and they want somebody who's actually going to go after somebody to try to exploit their weaknesses. Yes. And by the way, I actually think that makes for a better campaign because you actually start seeing a little bit more. Because let's face it, we don't elect gods.
Yeah. The idea of taking the high road is very popular, but I think at this point now it's a really archaic strategy. I have many clients in the private sector who love that idea. Let's just take the high road. Let's go above them. Let's not dignify a competitor. The problem is that in this age where information is created and consumed so fast, where entertainment is so crucial, that if you take the high road, as we said, you take the high road to nowhere. You essentially disconnect yourself from what is happening in the moment, from the relevance and the context of how people are making their assessments.
By the way, movie critics take the negative sometimes when they think it's a bad movie. It's not a personal thing. You can be that way when you're criticizing your opponent. There's no reason why you can't do that, and that's something that Bernie Sanders doesn't do. Yeah. Alan Kelly is with us. I want to make sure we also get to something that was not part of the presidential campaign directly, but became a part of it, and that was the Benghazi committee hearing. Mm-hmm. And Kevin McCarthy, the majority leader, uttered these, and Alan had written about this year, those famous words.
Everybody thought Hillary Clinton was unbeatable, right? But we put together a Benghazi special committee, a select committee. What are her numbers today? Her numbers are dropping. Why? Because she's untrustable.
That is the 50 ill-considered words, as you described it. Kevin McCarthy, the then majority leader, and still majority leader, who was speaker in waiting until he said that and a few other things. And you had written about this when he was discussing it with Sean Hannity. So what kind of a play was he running?
Yeah, I really wonder what sort of purgatory Kevin McCarthy has been committed to at this point. Because as I wrote in my blog, strategy is good, but luck is better. And I think that is one of the most defining moments of the whole campaign, right or left, is that he delivered. He had legitimized, the pestering meme on Hillary that there is a vast right-wing conspiracy. She didn't even have to say that it exists. She proved it right there, at least to her base and to the left-sided voters. And thus he gave her this sort of hall pass, this get-out-of-jail-free card on all these trust issues, all these email issues. And then you team that with Bernie giving her a sort of a hall pass as well. She instantly went from a candidate on the defense to a relaxed candidate on the offense. And I think from that point on, it was over for the Bernie Sanders or the Martin O'Malley's. And on for Hillary.
There's another moment during the year, and actually this was a series of moments I think we were constantly evaluating going back to the well on this particular story.
Do you have anything you'd like to tell us right now about your plans?
Yes. I think you should run for president again, and I'll be your vice president.
Okay, so that was Vice President Joe Biden with Stephen Colbert, as Vice President Biden teased out the possibility of running for president so long this year. As a matter of fact, it got to be too long. It was complicated because people wondered all along if he was going to do it, but obviously the death of his son complicated things. And at the end, he said, look, I can't put my entire heart and soul into this. But there were many plays being run during that entire process, Alan.
Think of how everything is turned on just a few moments. If Kevin McCarthy had said two of the 50 words just slightly differently, Hillary could easily still be and profoundly on the defense. If Joe Biden or Elizabeth Warren, for that matter, had run maybe more declarative plays than, say, these pings, these subtle pings and pauses, which I outline, it would be a very, very different race. But they didn't. In the case of Biden, and I think I would team him with Warren, that was a cat and mouse. Mm-hmm. Each I think was clearly willing to use the speculation to fuel their brand, to continue to lift their certain influence and magnify, and enlarge their voice, but not to the point where they would actually enter the race. So they played it right up to the edge through these plays called pings and pauses and maybe occasional pass. Very, very low engagement, very sort of subtle influence strategy.
And what was the Hillary play, before we wrap up here, the Hillary play in response saying, I know Joe Biden, I like Joe Biden, he'll make up his mind in time. What is that play? Is that a pause? Is that that's not a bear hug, obviously. What kind of a play is that?
In a way, it's a red herring.
Mm-hmm.
They're diverting plays. They're deflects and diverting. Deflects and red herrings are two of the plays that comprise that category called diverting. And I think that it was disingenuous. I think she was sort of trying to say, "Oh yes, it's absolutely fine," which, of course, it's not fine. She had to say something.
Right.
And so I think that was a reasonable play to run, a little transparent, but it's what she had to do.
Alan Kelly, it's been a pleasure. Once again, a great year. We're looking forward to more fun in 2016.
Always a pleasure to be at POTUS and talk not red, talk not blue, but talk right down the middle to you, man.
Very good. And happy holidays to you and the family.
You too.
Enjoy. Alan Kelly joining us. Alan, as we mentioned, if you're running plays or if somebody's running a play on you, you want to know about it, just go to Google, get the standard table of influence, or you can download a free app, Play Caller. It's on iTunes. Alan Kelly tweets, by the way, at Playmaker Alan, ALAN.